If you're afraid of spiders, then now's the time to leave. And if a rat can scare you, then maintain your seat. If you're a little squeamish, my heart goes out to you. Cause if I could, I'd probably exit too. This is your only warning, this is your only warning, this is your only warning. I will not say this twice. This is your only warning, this is your only warning, cause spiders crawling on your face ain't nice.
Joe lost his girlfriend when she jumped to her death. Now, he wasn't with her when she did, but he did see her earlier that night, and that last conversation they had had still haunts him to this day. She asked him if there was ever a time in his life when he felt completely helpless, when he couldn't speak or move or even think for himself, and he told her no. And she smiled then, and she looked deeply into his eyes. And for a moment, he got the impression there was more than just her looking back at him. And then she told him that she hoped he never did feel that way, and that she loved him, and that she wanted to be sure that he knew, and that she had a chance to tell him while she still could. Now, she had no history of mental illness, and the autopsy showed no trace of drugs or alcohol in her system. The only thing found was a spider lodged inside her head, resting just on top of the brainstem. And after some fruitless speculations as to just how it got there, the coroner concluded that its presence couldn't be explained, but that her erratic behavior and subsequent suicide could be attributed to having had her brain displaced, however slightly, by that little spider inside her. Now, over the next couple of years, Joe came to terms with his lost love, but he never stopped obsessing over that spider. He dug up all the information he could on parasites, and he found wasps that lobotomized roaches and paralyzed tarantulas, leaving them alive but unable to act against the laying and eventual hatching of larvae within their own still helpless bodies. He found parasites that forced ants to vie hard for the attention of predatory birds or simply jump from high branches to the hard, unforgiving ground below. The world of the minute and microscopic was rife with mind-eating and mind-controlling parasites, but most of what he could find about spiders was more along the conventional lines of their neurotoxins' effects on their various prey. For instance, he learned that the widow and the recluse, most commonly blamed for death through the spider, are actually timid creatures that would rather run and hide than bite and kill. And even then, all but the most severe of allergic reactions usually only results in vomiting and painful spasms at worst. But the Brazilian wandering spider is far more deadly, delivering a potent enough venom to kill a guy in about 3 bites, and being aggressive enough to chase you down and do it. They're also known as the banana spider because they occasionally hitch a ride north in a bunch or two, so watch out for those. He also found some extensive folklore surrounding the existence of a communal, cave-dwelling species of spider that lived in genetic isolation high atop a plateau in South America, whose incredibly strong venom doesn't kill, but first paralyzes, then causes hallucinations, and finally enhances every physical sensation the body can endure, until the slightest touch is felt tenfold. If one of these spiders were to bite you, you can only lie there, seeing things and feeling everything far more intently than you can really bear, while thousands of its little friends come down on walls and ceilings and dine upon you, and you die, slowly. Eventually, after being nibbled to death for a couple of days by the swarm. But it took him years to find that page on GeoCities that had what he was really looking for. Documented evidence that there's a kind of spider out there that lives exclusively within the brains of mammals. And he emailed back and forth a couple of times with the site's webmaster, who gave her name as Melissa Starless. And the two of them eventually decided to meet. Now, neither of them, wanting to reveal their home address, chose a public location instead. Joe met Melissa in a library. It was one of the big, old ones with floor-to-ceiling shelves full of must and mold, pressed tightly between pages of countless tomes. And he found her at a table with stacks of old books in front of her and iPod buds in her ears. And he asked what she was listening to, and she said Revolver, but that's not important. Sit down. Now, she was kind of crazy and kind of mean, so naturally he kind of fell in love with her as she filled him in on the many hints throughout recorded history left by the previous spider fighters. The Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, the Zulus, and the ancient Chinese all had their lesser-known legends about these spiders. And they've been infesting humans for as long as recorded history could show, and only rarely were they ever exposed. Now, she and he were about to enter together on an esoteric calling that was as old as the parasitic problem itself, and soon they were teaming up against the unseen, multi-legged menace. Now, she schooled him on everything he would need to know. For example, these things don't just live in the brain, they learn to control it. Like strands of web, they manipulate the neurons and the chemical synapses, a tap here and a tug there, stimulating the cortex with commands that grow harder and harder to resist as time goes on. After a while, they're literally piloting our bodies around, guiding our actions, our thoughts, even our perceptions, while they rest comfortably inside our heads. And she told him over the time they take control, you'll notice changes in a person's behavior. They'll start out acting mildly erratic as the bug within finds its bearings, and then over a few months they'll gradually go from erratic behavior to total debaggery as the bug within takes control. Now, she said you can tell first when a person is possessed because when you look in their eyes, you see 8 other eyes looking back at you. You know that urban legend about the kid who scraped his cheek on a rusty nail and a few days later had dozens of baby spiders hatching out from under the scab? It wasn't really an urban legend, it's a true story that got its facts skewed over countless retellings. The truth was that these spiders weren't just getting in our brains and being benign about it. They used us as incubators. They laid eggs inside, and when that egg sac hatched, hundreds of little hatchlings poured out the nasal cavity or burrowed their way out to the ears or the mouth in search of the next unspoiled brain. Now, a lot happened over the months, in the months after Joe first met Miss Scarlet in the library with the revolver. He started wearing a SARS mask to bed because at night when you're asleep, you're vulnerable, and that's their favorite time to get you. He actually woke up one night and caught one, started tickling his face, just trying to get under the mask. And both he and Melissa got a little paranoid after that. And they realized the spiders were on them, and they stepped up their efforts. And they actively hunted down the infested among us. They ate on the go, and they only slept when exhaustion forced it. At all other times, they were on a mission to save the human race, both from its arachnid overlords and its respective mortal coil. Because you see, there was no way to remove a spider from the brain of another person without making a big sloppy mess of a killing in the process. So Joe and Melissa avoided the mess and just went straight for the killing. And they were always out there looking for you. If you were a little weird or quirky, or you wouldn't make eye contact, or you wore sunglasses everywhere you went, they assumed you were hiding something. And God help you if they found out you were a spider zone. And for months, they quietly combed the ranks of the enemy and burned the bodies. And it was long, hard work. Combined with their diets and lack of sleep, it exhausted them. Melissa was the first to lose her gusto. She gradually slowed down and seemed less interested in the mission. She'd stop and ask him to sit, sometimes for hours at a time, and they would just talk. And they got to know each other a lot better when they stopped spending all of their time killing. And after a while, Joe started to feel like maybe she felt the same way about him as he did her. Even as she wore down, and eventually donned a pair of sunglasses to hide her tired, sunken, bloodshot eyes, he started to feel like she was falling in love with him. And then, one day, completely out of the blue, they had that proverbial first kiss. And like any other first kiss that comes at the end of a long period of anticipation, their bodies buzzed when their lips first touched. That trademark tingle of the touch you've been dreaming of shot down Joe's spine and stood his hairs on end. And in all the excitement, he barely noticed that just inside his lip, the tingle was turned to more of a tickle, as if something tiny with a lot of legs was scurrying around his mouth. And then there was another, and soon his mouth was filled with creepy, crawly little invaders darting about. Now he pushed her away, and when he did, he saw hundreds, maybe even thousands more baby spiders pouring out of her mouth. So he choked and he spit them out and he ran as fast as he could, hoping none of them made it to the brain. I'd like to tell you there's some moral to this story, a resolution or some kind of happy ending, but I can't. You see, Joe never saw Melissa again, and that's the last I know of their story. And for those of you wondering whether or not this story is true, I'll just say, true enough. Of course, I had to change the names to protect the survivors, but other than that, you can rest assured that these things really did happen, and they're still happening. And I hope none of you ever have to go through what Joe did. And I wanted to be sure I had a chance to tell you that, to warn you, while I still could.